1. Into the night. Gwen, wake up, wake up. Mom was shaking me hard, too hard. Her knuckles were white as she grabbed my shoulder. I felt like crying out, but I didn't. Maybe because Mom's voice was filled with fear. Instead, I did what I was told. I stand up. We have to move fast. They are coming. I jumped out of bed and pulled on some clothes. It was still dark, but everyone was up. Outside, I could hear neighbors screaming, horns beeping, people crying. I followed Mom to the kitchen and watched her tip the entire container of my school bag onto the floor. My tin pencil case clunged open, but Mom didn't even seem to care. I wanted to complain, but I was too afraid. Mom then filled up my bag with food. Behind her, I saw Dad going out the front door with a heavy load of suitcase. Take this to your father, Mom said, handing me my school bag. I ran outside to find Dad shoving cases into the car. I gave him my school bag and he flung it on top of a pile in the boot. Stay calm, Gwen, he told me. Although he didn't sound calm himself, he turned back to the house. Come on, he muttered. Hurry up. A car blew its horn, then swerved around a van and sped away. Mom and my big sister Kate emerged from the house and ran towards our car. It was strange. The Mom didn't even stop to shut the front door. Everyone in, Dad shouted. Kate and I were worried because Dad rarely raised his voice. We piled into the car and took off into the night. As we drove out of town, the road ahead was packed with cars that were full of bags, full of people, full of kids, some younger than me, some older, all staring out the windows. It was like we were all going on a big group holiday, except no one was smiling. We sped along with the other cars for what seemed like a very long time. Later, the road led into a forest, winding through banks of shadowy trees. Where are we going, Mom? I finally asked. Girls, try to close your eyes, Mom replied, her voice shake. Have a little rest. Why did we have to leave? Kate asked. Kate had just turned 11 and had always been curious about everything. Mom didn't answer. I looked across at Kate, who shrugged. Soon Kate peeped up again. Can we play the game where we think of countries beginning with different letters? Not now, Kate, said Mom. I was revealed. I hated that game. The last time we played it, I'd taken ages to think of a country starting with B. I wasn't sure if Belgium was a country or a city. Afterwards, Dad had said to me, Ewan, sweetheart, you need to trust your instinct more. He was always saying that to me. Follow your instinct. As I watched Dad driving the car now through, he seemed really unsure. Kate must have sensed it too. because she didn't ask any more questions for the rest of the trip. Instead, we all sat in silence as we drove for hours, deep into the forest, down an unfamiliar road that seemed to go on forever. I stared out the window and saw nothing but trees on both sides for miles and miles. Suddenly, I heard a distant explosion. "What was that?" I said. Mom looked across at Dad. I heard it again, this time a little louder. Dad stepped hard on the accelerator and the car lunged forward and an even greater speed. "Dad, you are going too fast," Kate squeaked. "Shush, it's fine," snapped Dad, normally really calm. Dad's tone did nothing to rescue us. Then, after a moment, Dad turned around to look at Kate. "I'm sorry, honey. We just have to." Slam! We'd run right into the back of a truck. I hit my head against the back of Dad's seat. Mom screamed. Kate started crying. "Is everyone all right?" choked Dad. He turned around to check on us, and we nodded frantically. In front of us were what looked like 100 cars, all stopped, all lined up along the road, which wound up a dark mountain. "We should have left earlier," cried Mom, her face white. In the distance, we could hear a series of thunderous cracking sounds. "Everyone out of the car now!" Dad shouted. Kate and I froze. We didn't know what to do. I stared through our cracked windscreen at a big blue moon on the back of the truck we just crashed into. Mom always sat there quiet and still, while Dad jumped out of the car and ran around the back to drag everything out of the boot. The thundering noise grew louder. Mom turned to us, her face red and wet with tears. "Girls, Mommy loves you very much. Are you listening to me?" She leaned into the back and shook my shoulder. "Listen to me, Gwen. I need you both to run. Mom and Dad will be right behind you. But you must run and not look back. And even if you didn't keep up, you just keep running. You hear me?" Kate and I stared at her. "You hear me, girls?" She was yelling now. "Promise me, girls. Promise you will keep going." "Okay," I cried. Dad opened the door and pulled me and Kate out. He threw us our school bags and gave us each a shove. "Go." We started running. Other families were running now too. All these families, just like ours, scrambling out of their cars, clutching whatever they could carry, and running as fast as they could over the grassy field that lay between the cars and the tree canopy beyond. I glanced over my shoulder. Dad was lugging 2 suitcases, and Mom clutched a small pack to her chest, gripping Kate's hand as she ran. The field ahead was filled with clover, and for a moment a small part of me wondered whether there was one with 4 leaves for luck. Then I heard a high-pitched sound. "Yay!" It got louder and louder as the shadow of a plane fell over us. Then suddenly, boom! A massive explosion sent us all slamming to the ground. Smoke filled the air. "Run!" cried Dad as she struggled to his feet. Mom was helping Kate, who had fallen over. "Run, Gwen! Keep going, you promised, run!" Without even thinking, I started to run again. I looked back to see if my family was behind me, but couldn't make them out among the swirling smoke. I wanted to stop and go back, but all I could hear was Mom's voice begging me to keep going. Something inside me told me to do as she said. I wanted to stop and go back, but all I would hear was Mom's voice begging me to keep going. Something inside me told me to do as she said. Maybe this was the instinct that always told me to follow. So that's what I did. I ran and ran, leaping over clumps of grass to the smoky field. I usually loved running. Ever since I was a little girl, I would run in the fields behind our home, sprinting past the cows and the horses. Sometimes I'd even run with Dad through the woods. He was a good runner too, and I loved how he always pretended to lose when he raced me. There were strange sounds in the air now, people crying, the smell of smoke. When I reached the tree line and plunged into the forest, a branch snagged my sleeve, but I snapped past it. I had to slow through as the light from the road disappeared and the world darkened. Making my way through the forest, the shadows trees seemed to grow taller until they loomed all around me, but still I ran, spudding on. 2. Lost. I woke to darkness. How long had I been asleep? I wondered. A few hours? More. I touched the side of my head, where it throbbed and felt something sticky. I looked down at my hand, and as my eyes adjusted to the moonlight finding its way through the treetops, I saw flakes of dark, dried blood. Where was my family? Mom? Dad? Ma? I started to choke so hard that my throat hurt. Still, I kept yelling until my mouth was so dry I couldn't call out anymore. What's the number one thing you have to remember after you go for a run? Dad always asks me. Drink plenty of water, I answered. Water. I needed water. I opened my school bag. Biscuits, cheese, dried beef jerky. Yuck! I hated dried beef. I unzipped the side compartment in hope. Mom had forgotten to empty it, so I had a pencil sharpener, 2 erasers, some markers, even my favorite Winnie the Pooh scissors, but no water. Where do I find water? All I could see around me was trees. Big trees against a sky that was purple and slowly turning pink. The moon was still out, but it looked like morning was coming. I got out slowly and checked myself over. My arms and legs were scratched and sore, and my head ached a bit. But I was okay. Was I out of danger? Maybe there were other people nearby. I listened carefully for anything. A waterfall, a stream, the crunch of a football on leaves. All I could hear were birds. Which way should I go? Which way did I need to go to find water? Maybe back to where I last saw Mom and Dad. I tried to figure out what distance I came from, but as I looked left and right, it all looked exactly the same. Trees and more trees. The only thing I could think to do was to follow the sound of birds. As I walked, the trees started getting bigger and the forest became more dense. Above me, the sky began to turn bright orange. Still no water. But then my arm brushed something wet. The big leaves on the new trees were covered with dew. I had an idea. I licked the dewdrops off the leaves. Lick, 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 lick. I tasted a bit funny at first, but I didn't care. I started folding the leaves and pouring tiny droplets onto my tongue. I was still thirsty, but at least my mouth wasn't completely dry anymore. Before I knew it, the sun was up, casting hot rays down on me and drying out all the dew. Suddenly, I wanted my parents more than ever. Mom, Dad, Katie, they'd be worried about me, wondering where in the world I was. Instinctively, I reached inside my shirt and hunted for my necklace. Before the war began, Dad gave us all matching lockers. Inside each lock was a tiny photo of our family, the four of us together, happy and smiling on Christmas Day. Ever since we'd all worn our lockets on a leather necklace wherever we went. Mine meant everything to me. And now when I really needed to see my family's face, I was glad to have it. As my hands reached inside my shirt, I had the most horrible realization. The locket was gone. Spurred on by the promise I had made, Mom, and the sound of explosion behind me. At least the sound started to fade. I was also getting tired. Very, very tired. During our runs, Dad had always taught me to breathe deeply when exhaustion was setting in. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. He'd say, focus on where your feet land. I didn't know how long I was running for, but his words echoed in my head with every step. It felt like hours before I noticed my hands were shaking and everything around me was starting to spin. That's when I slipped and hit my head on a rock.